My football empire is already getting out of control. We're only 4 seasons in, but somehow I'm already juggling clubs across Europe, South America and Asia. We've got Sunderland, Standard Liege, Hamburg, Independente and Urawa Red Diamonds. It's a lot. And today it's all about learning how to actually make the empire work. Sunderland are already feeling the strain. The finances there aren't looking great for some reason. And if they're going to be the flagship of the empire like they were supposed to be, we probably need to change our transfer policy. No more sending endless money to the other clubs. It's time to get Sunderland firing and push them towards the Champions League. We need to see if we can steady the ship, strengthen every squad, and maybe, just maybe, grow our empire even further. And as a reminder, this is where we got to at the end of season 3. So Sunderland with a very disappointing 11th place finish. And I mean, we'll call it financial problems. It was like that when I got here, honest. Hamburg did fare a little bit better, finishing just outside the Champions League qualification spots, which, as they are a contender to take over as the flagship club of the empire, if all goes wrong with Sunderland, that's good to see. And then, of course, we had Standard Liège, the stars of the show, winning the Belgian league, and now just a couple of playoff matches away from getting into the Champions League proper, which will unlock a 6th club for our empire, an African club. But in the meantime, we have got 2 new clubs to introduce, but they both live on opposite seasons to us here in Europe. Independente in Argentina, Urawa Red Dragons in Japan. So we've literally just taken over and immediately gone on holiday until the end of the season. Independiente looking pretty good. Urawa Red Diamonds are... I mean, they've got a chance of Champions League qualification as well, but we'll check in with them midway through the episode when their transfer windows open. Our job for now is sort Sunderland out. We need to instigate a new transfer policy. We can't keep piling money onto the Never Never. That stops here. No more Never Never. And we do need to sort out the balance and probably stop sending money throughout the rest of the empire. We've obviously got all these clubs that we're giving £10 million a year to from the Sunderland kitty. Meanwhile, our projection is expected to get worse by £30 million a season. So if we just plug that gap and stop sending the money away, we become profitable even in our current state. And if we can maybe lay off the Never Never a little bit, because frankly, it's not worked. 3 seasons in, and this is our record after 3 seasons, 11th, 8th, 11th. In that time, we've spent £700-800 million on players. I mean, it's not ideal. We need to start properly using our feeder clubs, I think. We'll figure something out. But good old Football Manager doesn't want me to think about it too strenuously, because it's done what Football Manager does anytime a player-controlled team gets in any kind of financial trouble. Hi, Kyril, how are you doing? He's got news for me. We've signed a new 1-year European partnership with a telecommunications company. It's usually a soft drinks company. It's hoped that the deal, worth £213 million, will provide the club with more avenues to connect to a European audience. That is a 1-year, £213 million sponsorship deal, which, as you can see, has absolutely sorted us out. Our debts are wiped. We're not even in our overdraft anymore. And we've now got bunches of cash to spend and a projection that all of a sudden looks rather a lot healthier, because as part of that, we have also removed the £10 million a year annual fees. So each club ideally becomes self-sufficient from here. If they're not able to be self-sufficient, that's something we can adjust later on. If you want to know how I'm adjusting all that, I did make a little tutorial video recently that you can go and check out. I'll link to that down below. But yeah, this is a much healthier situation to be in. If we can bring this down, great, but it's no longer a massive priority, because obviously we've got money to fling around all over the shop again. We're so far clear of FFP. It's very tempting to abandon the plan and just go and spend like a maniac again. But I have managed to control myself. The transfer window here in England has just closed. And as you can see, it's a relatively low net spend. I mean, yes, there were a couple of big transfers at the end of last season that I mean, that's only like £100 million. What's £100 million between friends? And it is worth pointing out that we also sold Yusufa Moukoko for the best part of 40 million as part of that as well. So we had a net spend right at the end of last season of 60 or 70 million that saw Moukoko leave and get replaced with 6'4" Luka Vuskovic, a centre-back from Spurs, and Finn Jeltsch, a German international centre-back at 22, already 4 caps for Germany, hasn't passed through Hamburg, which would have been the ideal way for a player to come from Germany, but we figured we wanted him at Sunderland straight away, so in he comes as we continue to try and fix a defence that now contains those two, plus Harry Maguire, plus Jared Branthwaite, plus basically the defence is still rubbish no matter what we do to it. And then we got into the tick over to the new season where we've started to sell some of what we'll generously call the mistakes. Amari Hutchinson, we've sold for £39.5 million. I think we've done incredibly well to only lose 25 million or so on that guy. I don't know what I was thinking when I signed him. I think I just got a bit carried away with the instalments. But we've got a few of our fringies that have gone out on loan to our feeder clubs, Standard Liège and Hamburg. So Standard Liège get Marc Bernal, the guy we signed off of Barcelona for 20 million, and then Hamburg didn't really use. Hopefully Standard Liège will use him. They also got Chris Rigg, who, similar situation, was out at Hamburg, wasn't really used there, but as you can see, is already being used at Standard Liège. They got Mayenda, who has been on loan at Blackburn for the last couple of years, outside of the network. Not ideal. He now gets to go and try his hand potentially in the Champions League with Standard Liège. And then Hamburg got Arthur Vermeeren, who turned down a move to Standard Liège despite being Belgian. I guess he's got Antwerp in him and can't possibly go to Standard Liège. But he is another one that I think we're going to live to regret. A £55 million purchase that my assistant manager clearly didn't rate, never used. Hopefully you can get a look in at Hamburg. And Bence Dardai, who we originally signed specifically to loan to Hamburg, but then got caught up in the not allowed to send too many players over the age of 22. I think you're only allowed 6 over 22 loans internationally. So we signed him for Hamburg at Sunderland, couldn't send him there, obviously didn't use him as a result, but he now finally has gone where he was supposed to go all along and joined Hamburg. We've also let a couple more of the fringe players leave. Kirkin has gone to Coventry. Rofs has gone to Sampoli. Granit Xhaka has gone to El Ettifaq for £6 million. And Valentin Gomez, who we signed last summer for 39 million from PSG, has gone to Bayern for 59 million. So it's a rare profit in this save on a player. And we've also sold Emmanuel Emega, who was fantastic for us in his first season, less so in the last 2. And again, we were able to turn a massive transfer profit on him, and I think the players we've brought in to play up front are an upgrade anyway. Adingra has also gone out on loan to Real Betis because he wouldn't go to any of our feeder clubs. And we sold Andres Pereira, who was another one we signed with a view to loan out. We couldn't loan him out because of the same thing, and then he wouldn't be loaned out, so we've sold him. And annoyingly, he's gone to Club Brugge and got 4 goals in 5 matches. He was supposed to be on loan at Standard Liège, not benefiting Club Brugge. But with all of those £159 million of players leaving, we've brought in Andrew Robertson from Liverpool on a free transfer, just for a little bit of much needed experience. Now Granit Xhaka has moved on. We needed someone with some proper Premier League experience. Ivan Fresneda has come in as a rotation option for us at right back. But here come the strikers. Sky Vink is a 22-year-old Dutch international, 6'1", 3 stars current ability, 4.5 stars of potential. He is my kind of striker. Big, strong, fast, good finisher, scored plenty of goals for Ajax over the last few years. He is in, but he is not alone. Ori Stein Oskarsson is a 24-year-old Icelandic striker who again fits the Kev mould, 6'2", big, physical, fast, strong, good finisher, can also play out on the right-hand side. He's been playing for Real Sociedad. He's the reason Adingra left as well. And then just in case, he was available. You know I love Evan Ferguson. I love, 2021 Evan Ferguson. But yeah, we've got a version of Evan Ferguson who, again, looking at his attributes, should be everything I've ever wanted. Maybe he will be, but it's not really worked out for him yet in this save. Brighton keep loaning him out. He didn't really score goals at Roma. didn't really score goals at Lyon. Maybe he'll score goals for us, but that's 3 new strikers in, which is why we were able to let Omega go, and used some of the spare money to get João Rego as well. He's a 23-year-old Portuguese left winger / attacking midfielder who comes in from Benfica. And then the last signing at Sunderland is Kees Smit, who's on loan from Bayer Leverkusen for the rest of the season, just as an additional option for us in central midfield, with Xhaka and Vermeeren and Rig and Bernal all going out on loan. We felt like we needed just one more body in midfield. All of that means our best 11 at Sunderland, according to my assistant manager, now looks like this. And this, to me, should be pushing for a European qualification spot. You can see we started the season quite well. We're up in 7th place, and we have beaten Arsenal, although we lost to Manchester United, but solid start to the season. And there's not much in the way of a weakness in that squad or even on that bench. And I think the thing that might cost us, and one of the things we're going to continue to work towards at Sunderland, is I think the squad might be a little bit too big. So because we're not checking in on the squad again midway through the season, we then start to get people unhappy, and that unhappiness brings the squad down, and that's why we end the season in bad form. So we do want to continue trimming the squad, but not at the expense of this guy who we are keeping an eye on, Jose da Costa, now 6'4", and you can't teach that. He is now homegrown at club. I don't really know how, after only being here for 2 years or just over a year, but he's now in a position where he can be loaned out. Not this summer, because we've already finished for this summer, but maybe next summer when he turns 18, expect to see him at Hamburg or Standard Liège playing some football, and we want to have him as our first properly developed within the Empire superstar. That's the plan for da Costa. Then we jump over to Hamburg, who have also had their transfer window closed. The Belgian one is open for another week, so we'll check in on them when the Belgian window closes. But Hamburg, as you can see, we've started the season very well. 3 wins from 3, and this is what the transfers here look like. So we started moving players out before we started moving players in, really, shifting a few of the fringies out. So Ryan Philippe went to Paris FC for £3.2 million, and Fieti Arp, who it just didn't work out for him on his return to Hamburg, he has gone to FC Midtjylland in Denmark. So I guess we saved him from Denmark. Now we've sent him back for Denmark. We've taken a loss on him, but we got them out of the way to clear some space for them. And then there was a few more who left. Nobody massively significant, although we have sent a couple of players out on loan within the network. So Noah Darvic, who it's not really worked out for him at Hamburg. He's gone to Standard Liège and seems to be having a much nicer time here. And Chemstein Talby, this is a really interesting one because Independente are on holiday. I have not done anything at Independente yet, but because we've got the loan players within affiliate thing turned on, off their own back, they've asked for one of our players. I'm like, well, yeah, fill your boots, have him. So he was at Sunderland. We moved him on a free transfer to Hamburg for shenanigans, but he wasn't used at Hamburg. So now he's gone on loan to Independente, where he is being used. He's Belgian. He is destined to end up at Standard Liège eventually, but at the moment he hasn't done. And the rest of them were just kind of fringe players who we've moved on. You already know that we brought in Dardai and Vermeeren on loan from Sunderland. We also signed Alexandro Calot from Standard Liège. And this is, I think, our first example of deciding to keep a player within the Empire who ordinarily would have left. The long-term plan for Calot will probably be to go back to Standard Liège, but he'd outgrown them. He'd got to the point where he wanted to leave and we were getting big European clubs come in for him. But we just basically gazumped them with Hamburg and declined all the others, accepted only Hamburg. So we've moved him within the Empire. He is homegrown at Standard Liège, so if Liège are going to be long-term in the Champions League, he's an important player for us to have there. He doesn't want to go back yet, and as you can see, he's actually being used here at Hamburg. So he might thrive and stay at Hamburg, but like I say, he is signed very much with the plan to move him back to Standard Liège and keep him within the empire, but move him to one of the bigger clubs to keep him happy. And if that means we have to move him on again to Sunderland before he agrees to loan back to Standard Liège, then so be it. But we didn't want to lose him as a homegrown player from within our empire. And then we've signed some players. We've spent some money. We've signed a couple from Bayer Leverkusen, a left back that we signed before the Kallert situation happened, and Francis Onyeka, who we have high hopes for and is one of the reasons we were able to move on some of our other attacking midfielders. Florian Muller has come in as a backup goalkeeper from Brentford. And then again, just filling the squad out with a couple of fringe players as well. Our best 11 here at Hamburg now looks like this. Interesting that Talby would be in it. But for whatever reason, the assistant manager here just wasn't using him. So I guess presumably we put Onyeka in there. And it becomes that. So it is a pretty strong squad. And there's certainly areas where we would look to continue to improve. I think the Bundesliga probably is a weaker league than the Premier League, because I think this is a weaker team than the Sunderland team that we've got. But as you can see, it started the season stronger, and I think has a chance of pushing into the Champions League this season. Money-wise, everything is fine. We've not run up loads of transfer debt here. This is a club that probably would benefit from still getting the £10 million a year from Sunderland, but they'll be fine not having it for a year. And yeah, pretty happy with how things have gone at Hamburg. And now we're just waiting for the Belgian transfer window to close. And close it now has, and we've had a pretty active summer here at Standard Liège. Getting rid of lots of players we were never really planning on using, managing to get £10 million for them, although almost all of it was for that Kallert deal that I just explained. So he's the one who is now at Hamburg. And we've spent more money than Standard Liège have ever spent before in their history bringing players in. So Martinelli is in as a new midfield player. He comes in from Brentford. We already know about Bernal and Rig and Mayenda and Darvic all coming in from Sunderland or Hamburg. But then we also signed Maxim Glushenkov, who comes in from Monaco for £6 million. We've got a new striker, Norman Bassetti, who's an actual Belgian. This is what we're supposed to be doing with Standard Liège, signing the best Belgian players and then seeing if they're any good for us here, and if we can then maybe move them on to Hamburg or Sunderland. So finally getting a Belgian player through the door. Victor Froholt is a 22-year-old Danish international with loads of potential. He's come in from Porto on loan. It would be nice to be able to bring him in permanently. And then Vinlof is a 22-year-old Swedish left-back who we've brought in from Dinamo Zagreb as the replacement for Kallert. And then we've also brought in Michal Skoras, who's a 28-year-old Polish international, just to give us some depth on the wing. He's been playing regularly for Club Bruges, so we've strengthened ourselves, and weakened them all in one move. You can see we've had an almost unbeaten start to the season. We ignore what happened against Club Bruges. It happened in July. Results in July don't count, I don't think. And we're currently 6th in the league, but only 3 points off the top of the table. And of course, we have Champions League football. We beat Malmo. We have qualified for the Champions League proper, which means we unlock club number 6. But not until the end of the season, because I'm not adding them on now. So I'll show you who they are at the end of the episode. They are a club in Africa, though. But for now, we are going to holiday through until December, January. Basically the end of the season in Argentina and Japan to do their summer winters. I don't plan to be going back in and doing the January windows for the European clubs because, quite frankly, this episode has already taken me like a day and a half to do to get to this point. And we're going to be down to doing one of these a week if I'm doing all of the January windows as well. So I will do my very best, unless it looks like disasters are happening, because I'll obviously have to have a look, just to do Independente and Red Diamonds in January. Unless, of course, I need to move some players out of them into the European clubs, in which case I might have to jump back just temporarily. But I'll meet you there. And the first window of the two to open is the Argentinian one. So we are checking in with Independente, although it looks like we've gone a little bit too far because the season has ticked over as well. But that's where they finished last season. 7th in that league table. But of course, you then have this. Do you remember this from the Pentagon? It's the overall table that's the one we're interested in. So they finished 6th in the overall table, which is enough to get into the Copa Sudamericana. So that's the South American version of the Europa League, not the Copa Libertadores, which is the big one that we want to win. So they're not playing in the main competition yet, but they do have an absolute ton of cash for an Argentinian team. They did take that first £10 million payment from Sunderland. They didn't need it, but we've got £18 million to spend, and a squad that's absolutely chock full of talented youngsters that we're going to be keeping an eye out for our European clubs. There's a couple already up there in the first team. There are way more in the development centre, and this is why we wanted Independente. They are a club with a great record for youth recruitment and developing young talent. We are going to be pushing as much money as possible into those facilities because, yes, obviously we want to win the Copa Libertadores, but having now done a couple of Pentagons, I don't think it's that hard to win, even if you're selling your best players every year. So the idea is we sell our best young players every year to Hamburg or Sunderland or maybe even Standard Liège, and then try and hoover up all the best Argentinian talent and develop youngsters both from our youth system and other Argentinian teams, and just basically use the transfer money to plug gaps in the squad where gaps develop. But it's really a developmental squad for Europe that we need to win the Copa Libertadores with at some point. But we've not even qualified for it yet. So for now, we may as well skim off the top players. Like this guy is wanted by Wolves. So if he's off to the Premier League anyway, he's going to Sunderland. He is not going to Wolves. Couple of days later, and as you can see, Sunderland have magically already made an offer for him. I have just jumped back into Sunderland temporarily to make that offer. But the main reason we're back is because the Japanese transfer window is now open with Urawa Red Diamonds. So we can now check in on our 5th team who finished 5th in the J League last season, which I'm not sure, is that enough to get them into the Asian Champions League? I don't know where it tells me. It'll be on Club Vision. Probably not. I think we need to be maybe one place higher next season. So pretty much the same situation as we've got at Independente. We've got fantastic youth facilities here. There's loads of money knocking around. We've got loads of good young talent in the development centre, in that first team squad. It is the exact same scenario. We want to casually and quite slowly build together a team that can win the Asian Champions League, which isn't that hard to win, whilst picking the best talent and sending them to Europe, where we're going to try and build both Sunderland and Hamburg into like European mega clubs. Luka Jovic, he's knocking around in Japan now, is he? I remember when he was a really exciting FM wonder kid. What went wrong there? The move to Real Madrid is probably what went wrong. Don't go to Real Madrid, boys and girls. But yeah, that's the plan here as well. We've got a player called Bozo. Kind of want to make him the captain. Oh, I forgot how annoying the lack of having a deadline is in Argentina. And it was only so recent in my Pentagon as well. That is a summary of all the transfers that fell through when the transfer window closed, because there's no deadline day built into Argentina in Football Manager. So it doesn't rush the transfers through. It just, the day ticks by in the calendar and all your transfers fall through. So we had lots of good stuff happening. In the end, we've done much less. Need to remember to get the transfers done much earlier with Independente. But we did sell Thomas Parmo. He went to Sunderland for £5 million and has immediately come back on loan for the season, and will probably keep coming back on loan until he proves himself good enough to be able to play for one of our European teams. We then did the same thing with Santino Vialas, who was another one who was attracting interest from clubs in England. So we took him to Sunderland and have sent him back on loan as well. Didn't need to throw too much money at him for that, because Independente Independente have got more money than Sunderland at the moment. We did sign a couple of permanent players. Valente Pierani is a centre-back that we've brought in because he's relatively young, might still get better. And he's got an old man to partner him who's 6'4", and you can't teach that. Hopefully he'll score 30 goals from headers. And then we finished our incoming transfers off with this guy, Leandro Mamet, who is an example of a slightly older player who's just filling a squad gap. We don't really plan to use anything with him at any other club, but he might stay here for 3 or 4 years playing in central midfield, and that's fine. The only really significant outs were the 2 that went to Sunderland. And for Independente, for the rest of the save, that's how things should be. Any big sales should be going to Sunderland, Hamburg or Standard Liège. And then they can sell them on to other European clubs later if need be. But we want to sample all of our homegrown produce over in Europe ourselves before letting anyone else have it. So, yeah, that seems like it makes a lot of sense to me. I will show you the best 11. Obviously, it's not going to mean a huge amount because we're not going to know who any of these players are. And this is very much just a player farm. So I'm not going to get too attached to any of these names. I'm not even going to worry too much about being successful on the pitch until we get to the point where we're ready to try and win all 5 competitions in one season. We don't need to win the Copa Libertadores or even qualify for it until we're ready to win the European Champions League, because that's much harder to win. And we're miles away from winning that yet. And I think regardless of having managed in South America a couple of times now, give me 2 years notice, I'll get this team ready to win the Copa Libertadores then, and we're a lot more than 2 years away from winning the Champions League, so there's no rush. We're just building players at the moment. And then another thing I probably should have remembered from my Pentagon is that the transfer window in Japan is bananas and actually goes all the way through to April. We play 3 months of the season before the transfer window closes, so I've had to implement an internal transfer window. End of January, transfers are done, we go back on holiday and we just don't do any more business from there, because I'm not managing a quarter of the season actively myself because it will take forever. So Urawa Red Diamonds are on a January only transfer policy, the same as Independente. Slightly different scenario to what we did with Independente because there wasn't really anybody we wanted to bring to any of our European clubs. So we just did a fairly normal transfer window with a view to making this club better. So we've got rid of some of the players we weren't going to use, brought in a couple of freebies, and then a couple of players who might be useful elsewhere in the Empire eventually. I mean, Magrao at 6'6", he could comfortably come in and play for Standard Liège if he's any good. Diante Ramaj is another goalkeeper, or Diant Ramaz, who was at Fulham previously, played 18 games in the Premier League. Those 2 will fight out for the first team spot, and the other one will probably, when he gets unhappy, come to Standard Liège for not a lot of money because we've got tons of cash here. So we may as well spend the money to bring him into the Empire here. And then whichever one we want at Standard Liège, he can move on a free transfer within the Empire and the other one can stay here. That's my plan. Yamamoto is just, it's a player to strengthen a squad gap at this club. And the same with Kensuke Fujiwara. So this is what the best 11 looks like here. And we'll check in on them again halfway through the next episode because we go back on holiday now with Argentina and Japan until next January. So next stop is the end of the season in Europe to see how those boys have been getting on. And I have managed to pretty much ignore them during January. I've been very well behaved. And that is another really disappointing season for Sunderland. Another 11th place finish in the Premier League. I mean, this is getting silly at this point. We've been here 4 years. We've finished 11th, 8th, 11th, 11th. How do these rascals do it with this simulation nonsense? Because I think my transfers have been really good. The 11 we've got at Sunderland is so much better than the 11 we had when I came. And we're just not getting any better. We also have flopped in both of the cups that we're in, knocked out of the FA Cup in the 3rd round, quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. So again, there's going to be no Europe next season. Financially, there's a bunch of money knocking around. Where has that come from? Is that just end of season Premier League money, or has something else happened that I don't know about? 125 million. Another big sponsorship. Hang on. We've had another massive 1-year sponsorship. that's obviously happened, yeah, in February while we were simming. Oh, that's insane. I mean, whoa, 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 whoa. Hello. Transfer debt is reducing. Projection is looking good. Really good. Oh, we can spend some money this summer with Sunderland. If we look at the money we spent last summer, I mean, Jared Branthwaite, he's been here a few years now. He started scoring goals, 19 goals in all competitions. Clearly, with the decline of Harry Maguire, Branthwaite at 6'5" is the one we've started aiming our corners at. Can't you tell when he took over as the guy we aim our corners at? So he's come on leaps and bounds. Sky Vink, still only 22, got 20 goals in all competitions, including 11 in 12 in Europe. Hang on. We were in Europe. How did we get on in... Oh, we lost in the Europa League final. We could have been in the Champions League. We were 2-0 up in the Europa League final. Well, that stings. That was a route into the Champions League for Sunderland, and they've bottled it. Well, at least Vink played well in Europe. Jack Grealish got 10 goals as well. But, I mean, on the whole, most of the players just not playing very well. Branthwaite gets a 7.15 average because of all the headers he scored. And Roth gets a 7.05 because presumably he's taking the corners on the right-hand side and getting all those assists. But nobody else is consistently playing well. And I said it before, and I think this is the problem. Our squad is too big. Club atmosphere is rotten. Managerial support is rotten. The club squad is too big to maintain morale over the course of a full season. And I mean, it definitely looks like there's more green in the first half of the season than there was in the second. When morale starts to drop, we start to play. But we need to shrink the squad. We need to simultaneously spend a lot of money and shrink the squad. That's the plan for next season. But it is ultimately another season of failure for Sunderland, because we're not even in Europe. And it is a similar story at Hamburg, who looked like they were pushing for Champions League when we let them go, but have ended up all the way down in 8th place. Again, not even qualifying for Europe. That is our two big flagship teams not even getting in Europe. Nelson Viper, only 9 goals in the league. What's gone on there? Gruder's quite good. 2 caps for Germany now as well. He might be someone we look to move over to Sunderland because he's doing quite well. We need to take the best of each of these squads and put them all together in one place and try and get at least one team into the Champions League, because this is bobbins. I mean, what are they? What is going on? They were also in the Europa League, got knocked out by Anderlecht in the round of 16. We've got to be better than Anderlecht, surely. Yikes. But again, there's money to spend, and goodness me, are we going to spend? And then even Standard Liège have let us down. They haven't won the league. They won it the year before, obviously. Finishing second should still be enough to get back into the Champions League. So we have got a second season of Champions League football with Standard Liège. And to be fair, they got out of the league stage. How do I show you the league stage? There you go. Finished 22nd in the league stage. And then in the knockout rounds, got knocked out by Manchester United. I mean, that's fair enough. Standard Liège are a good team. And because of that Champions League season, look at how much money there is to spend here. I tell you what, now they've got a second season in the Champions League, there is an argument that we start prioritising Standard Liège ahead of Sunderland and Hamburg. Or at least put them on equal pegging, the three of them. Noah Darvic, look, who's come in on loan from Hamburg, has been brilliant. 9 goals from 10 starts, a 7.23 average rating. I'm surprised he only started 9 games. Mark Bernal's been getting some game time as well. And in fact, that's massively promising for Sunderland, because Mark Bernal has come in playing for a Champions League team, played all season, and has ended the season as the best player in the squad. Chris Rigg, worryingly, still not developing. So it might not be happening for Chris Rigg, but Bernal should be playing for Sunderland or Hamburg, I guess, next season? Or do we bring him back here? Because then he gets to continue playing in the Champions League. So many decisions to make. With one of those decisions, of course, being which African team do we add? Because we qualified for the Champions League with Standard Liège. Because we're playing on a vanilla version of the database, we only have the choice of South African teams. So the one we've gone for is Mamelodi Sundowns for a couple of reasons. One, they're not Kaiser Chiefs. So we didn't want the best team in South Africa, but we did want one that had the incredible youth setup, because the same as what we were saying with Independente and Red Diamonds, the idea of these clubs on other continents is to develop young players. And as you can see, we've got an excellent youth setup at Mamelodi Sundowns. There's a lot of very good players knocking around in the youth team, a lot of good young players in the first team squad, as you can see. I mean, that's quite good. And having finished second in the league, we are going to be straight into the African Champions League with them as well, which is jolly nice to see. There's not a lot of money to spend, but we know from the Pentagon that you don't need a lot of money in South Africa, because you could probably buy the entire Media Dream 11 for £4 or £5 million. And of course, A, we'll try and do that. But B, any of these players who you get any kind of sniff from European teams are going to be coming to our European teams. So the likes of Thomas Kekana and Sean Morosi and Vusi Nkosi. I mean, he's wanted by Milan and Juventus. These guys are going to be coming within the empire, whether they go straight to Sunderland or whether we've talked before about potentially hoarding the players at Hamburg, because there's no squad limit at Hamburg. So we could potentially hoard them at Hamburg and then loan them out accordingly within the empire. And then if they become really, really good, they can get moved to Sunderland then. But yeah, expect to see quite the conveyor belt of South African talent moving into other parts of the empire. And I do have some breaking news from Japan as well. Not just Urawa Red Diamonds are top of the league at the moment, midway through the season, which is jolly nice. But I didn't notice this when I was there before, but I have now noticed it and dealt with it accordingly. We took over the club on the 10th of July. On the 11th of October, we won the Emperor's Cup, which unlocks the last of the early game milestones for winning a domestic cup, which means we get to add an Eastern European team. So in addition to Mamelodi Sundowns being added, welcome to the empire, Dinamo Zagreb, who we've already mentioned once in this episode, because we actually bought a player from them. We bought this guy, Matteo Perez Vinlov, for Standard Liège. He came in from Dinamo Zagreb, and that is going to be a sign of things to come. This is yet another player factory. It's another club that has fantastic youth facilities, a fantastic reputation for developing young players. They're going to be playing European football, which is handy. But the main reason for wanting Dinamo Zagreb as our Eastern European expansion is because look at the quality of these young players. Look at the players that they've got. There's no one in the dev centre. They're all up in the first team. Look at the quality of these young players, though. All of them are under 21. Expect to see them starting to filter through into our big three in Central Europe, Sunderland, Hamburg and Standard Liège, along with a bunch of South African, Japanese and Argentinian players. We're going to be adding so many youngsters from this Dinamo Zagreb team, and I am very, very excited. That does mean we are now at the point, as we enter season 5, where we have 7 clubs to manage across 4 continents. So we only have North America still to unlock. These are my late game milestones. I did share them on the tutorial video yesterday, but these are the late game milestones. So I don't expect to add another club for a little while. So I don't think we're very close to winning any Champions Leagues yet. But that's when we'll unlock a North American, which will probably be Mexican team. But for now, I need to get my head around running a 7-club worldwide footballing empire. We've got a ton of money to spend at Sunderland, and we need to get to the point where we are turning Sunderland, Hamburg and Standard Liège into established Champions League clubs and start that process of filtering in the young players from around the rest of the world. And I'm going to try and figure that out, how to do that for the next episode, which, as I've said repeatedly throughout this series, and we'll keep reminding you, I don't know quite when that next episode will be. This one has taken days to put together. And that was with 4 or 5 clubs. We've got 7 now. If you get it before the start of next week, give me a round of applause. I'll get it out as soon as I can, but I don't want to rush them because I'll do things like missing we've won the Emperor's Cup. But I think I've kept track of everything. We have 7 clubs. It's going to be fine. If you are enjoying the series so far, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on it there for me. Subscribe to the channel for loads more of this madness. Plus, anytime now, you would think some Football Manager 2026 news. I mean, if you're watching this on Thursday rather than Wednesday, you probably got that yesterday. I'm assuming at the moment this video is coming out before we've had any news because I'm recording it and we haven't had any. But there should be some of that probably, hopefully, before the next episode in this series. And I'll see you again for episode 5, season 5, as soon as it's ready. Thank you very much for watching, folks.